Imagine the silent, empty void of space. A place where even echoes die before they can be heard. It's there, in the darkness between stars, that the Elysium came across something that defied logic, something no human had ever seen. They thought they discovered an abandoned alien relic, a dead, drifting marvel of unknown technology. But what they found was far worse. Much worse. The truth was that ship was not abandoned. It was haunted by a presence beyond anything they could understand. Something ancient, driven by pain, fury, and endless hunger. A presence that had no mercy, no sympathy, and no limits. This story is about Captain Reed and his crew, who stepped inside that ghostly hulk and never returned the same. The Elysium was on a mapping mission, charting sectors beyond known territories. Weeks had gone by without any signs of life, without a single ping on the radar. Just dark, cold silence. Then, one day, as if the darkness had shifted, their scanners detected something that shouldn't have been there. An object, vast and angular, hovered in the emptiness. A derelict, maybe, or a wrecked alien ship. Its shape was unsettling, all sharp angles and dark hollows, unlike anything Earth had ever seen. Its exterior was a maze of alien geometry, with glyphs that seemed to breathe, almost pulse, in the dim green glow cast from within. The crew had seen strange things before, but this ship, it radiated a quiet malevolence that put an icy knot in each of their stomachs. Captain Reed, never one to turn down a mystery, made the call. They'd investigate. The lure of discovery, of being the first to step into something older and far more advanced, was irresistible. They docked with the alien ship, sealing the airlock between their vessel and the silent behemoth. As the doors opened, a wave of freezing air washed over them, along with a smell that made their stomachs turn. A mix of rust, decay, and something sour, like rotting metal. Lieutenant Tanaka was the first to step inside. She hesitated, feeling a peculiar sense of dread prickling her skin, as if unseen eyes were watching her. And yet, there was nothing. Just endless, dark corridors lined with glyphs that flickered faintly in the shadows. She whispered, more to herself than anyone, "It's so quiet," but that silence had weight, like something waiting, biding its time. And deep down, each crew member felt it, the unshakable feeling that they had disturbed something that was not meant to be found. They ventured further into the ship, moving through winding corridors that seemed to shift and change. The walls were alive with strange, indecipherable symbols that seemed to glow brighter the further they went. But with every step, the ship grew colder, the lights dimmer. It was as if the ship itself was absorbing their warmth, their energy, feeding off their very presence. A sound began to follow them, a faint hum, like a voice whispering in the darkness. At first, they tried to ignore it, brushing it off as the groaning of an old ship. But soon, the hum became more distinct, more invasive. It filled their helmets, pressing against their minds like static, yet almost rhythmic, like a pulse, like a heartbeat. Ethan, the engineer, paused, running his fingers along the walls, feeling the strange, almost organic surface beneath the metal. "It's alive," he muttered, the realization chilling him to his core. "The ship, it's alive." His words barely left his lips when the lights dimmed further, flickering erratically. The hum grew louder, shifting into something guttural, like the grinding of bones. A figure emerged at the edge of their lights, standing just far enough away that its shape was indistinct, a silhouette darker than the shadows around it. It was tall, impossibly thin, with elongated limbs that seemed to ripple and twitch. Its eyes glowed a sickly, otherworldly green, piercing through the darkness. The figure didn't move, didn't breathe, just stared at them with an intensity that seared through each of their minds. Ethan's flashlight flickered, casting erratic beams across the figure's face. An alien face frozen in a rictus of agony, its mouth locked in a silent scream. Then, just as quickly as it appeared, the figure vanished, leaving only a chilling silence in its wake. But that silence held something else, a warning. The alien ghost had marked them. Panic simmered beneath the crew's trained professionalism. They tried to contact the Elysium, but their signals were met with only static. The ship's walls seemed to absorb sound, their voices muffled, as if they were speaking into a vacuum. Dr. Singh, the medic, checked her scanner, and her eyes widened in horror. "Captain, something's wrong. There's interference, but it feels like we're being blocked, jammed, like something doesn't want us to leave." Captain Reed's mind raced. This was supposed to be a simple investigation, but now they were stranded, trapped by a force they couldn't understand. Desperation crept into their steps as they moved through endless corridors, each one seeming to lead them back to where they started, as if the ship were playing with them, like a predator toying with its prey. Then, the first casualty. Ethan's scream tore through the air, freezing the others in their tracks. They turned to find him, eyes wide with terror, gasping for breath as he clawed at his helmet. His skin was pale, his veins dark and swollen, as if something inside him was consuming his life from the inside out. He staggered, his fingers digging into the wall as he fought to breathe. A sickening, wet sound filled the air as Ethan's chest began to heave unnaturally. His spine twisted, his body jerking violently. And then, just as his last scream faded, his body went limp, his face frozen in terror. When they examined his body, they found something written in his own blood, smeared on the wall beside him. A single symbol, one of the alien glyphs, pulsing faintly as if mocking them. The crew stared at the symbol, feeling the horror settle deep in their bones. It wasn't a message, it was a mark, a branding that Ethan had been taken, claimed by the ship itself. And there was nothing they could do to stop it. With every corridor they took, the alien ship seemed to shift around them, guiding them in circles. The hum had become a chant, the words indistinct but filled with anguish. It was as if the walls themselves were alive, whispering, taunting. Strange, shadowy figures flickered at the edges of their vision, always disappearing when they turned to look. Dr. Singh was the next to falter. She began to murmur to herself, her voice barely audible. She spoke of voices, of people she could see just beyond the walls, people reaching out to her with hands twisted in unnatural shapes. They're trapped here. All of them. They're all still here. Her eyes glazed over as she walked away from the group, drawn by something only she could see. The others called after her, their voices echoing, swallowed by the alien walls. When they finally found her, she was on her knees, her face a mask of horror, staring at the twisted visage of Ethan's ghost. Dr. Singh's last words chilled them to their core. He says there's no escape, no way out. Her body went limp, her head slumping forward, her last breath taken as the alien spirit devoured her very essence. The others could only watch as her body flickered, an unnatural light surrounding her, her spirit joining the ranks of the damned, bound forever to the ship. Lieutenant Tanaka and Marlowe, the science officer, tried to stay rational, but even they felt the unrelenting pressure of dread. The ship felt like it was closing in on them, the corridors darker, the whispers louder. They no longer saw the ghostly figures at the edges of their vision. They were surrounded by them, faces twisting in agony, spectral hands reaching out, brushing cold fingers against their suits. Tanaka lost her sanity first. She began to laugh, a hollow, echoing sound that sent chills down Marlowe's spine. She screamed at the shadows, shouting at ghosts only she could see. She clawed at her own helmet, desperate to escape, but there was nowhere to run, no way out. And then, as Marlowe watched, the alien ghost appeared before her, its thin, skeletal hand reaching out to touch her forehead. The moment it made contact, Tanaka froze. Her body convulsed, her eyes wide with terror as her spirit was ripped from her, leaving only an empty, lifeless shell behind. Only Captain Reed remained, alone in the darkness, surrounded by the ghosts of his fallen crew. Every step he took echoed, followed by a chorus of whispers, mocking, condemning. The hum was no longer a sound but a presence pressing against him, a heartbeat matching his own, entwined with his very soul. In a final, desperate attempt, he stumbled into a control room where a single ancient escape pod waited. He activated the launch sequence, his hands shaking, his breath shallow. The pod sealed around him, and as it launched, he looked back one last time. There, standing in the airlock, was the alien ghost, its glowing green eyes fixed on him, filled with an endless rage. It raised a skeletal hand, pointing, as if to promise that even in the vastness of space, even light years away, it would find him again. And then, in a blink, the ship vanished, swallowed by the void, leaving Captain Reed drifting, haunted by the knowledge that he had narrowly escaped. Yet knowing, deep down, he'd never truly be free. So the next time you look up at the stars, remember, there are things out there, things older and darker than we can imagine. And sometimes, if you're unlucky, you might just stumble upon them and never come back.